Hey guys, CG Inferno here today, and today's video I'm bringing you my review for Lost Soul Aside, which is a game that a lot of people are curious about, mainly because of how long it's been in development, the price as well, and some of the stuff that they've seen early on. But anyway, I managed to finish the game last night after staying up for like 35 plus hours. Please don't ever do that, you know, I don't think I'll do that again anytime soon. So yeah, in this review I'm going to go over the story a bit, the gameplay, the difficulty, the music, and whether or not you should buy the game or not. So, the story for Lost Soul Aside. Essentially, you play as a character named Kaiser, who is going on a journey basically to save his sister from what happened in the prologue. Now, I won't dive too deep into it in case people want to avoid spoilers and stuff, but eventually you go and meet your partner, whose name's Arena, which is probably the weirdest name that you can think of, but hey ho, that's what they wanted. And you guys set off on a journey to essentially go and save a sister, but also like try and save the world more or less from like the impending doom that's happening. Now in terms of story, you do meet a few fair amount of characters in between. Some of them are interesting, some of them are a bit meh, kind of meh, you know, don't really care too much for them. How the story's presented, I guess it's like your typical action game, you know, where you just go from, I wouldn't say it's from start A to B, but more or less, oh, this person's in danger, or this is gonna happen, we've got to save the world, but also, you know, there's more hidden stuff about why we're doing it and everything. So it's nothing too special. It's not bad, but it's nothing like outstanding, you know, which is, I guess, it's kind of hard to do in a sense for action games like these types, like hack and slash, because, you know, most of them kind of follow the same formula, right? And you know, some of them do it well, some of them don't do it well. This one I'll probably give it like a 7 out of 10, which is not too bad, but honestly I felt some parts could have been done better. Now, in terms of how long it took me to finish the game, it took me about 25 hours to do, and that's me exploring every map that you can explore in the game that you go and visit. Doing all the side challenges as well. Bearing in mind I did spend about like 2 to 3 hours doing one challenge because it required no damage, and yeah, let's just say I gave up after the third hour because the way some of the enemies are, I'll explain it a bit later, like in the other portion of the video. But yeah, it can be tedious, but for the most part you get a decent sizable story. If you're not trying to go for everything in the game or like talking to all the NPCs and stuff, which is what I've done, then you could probably finish in like 10 to 15 hours if you're really good and you're just like going from point A to point B. But yeah, I was pretty surprised with it, you know. I was like, okay, you know what, the story's quite good to an extent, you know, some cliche stuff here and there, but yeah, I was happy on that. Now in terms of the voice acting, I'll say it's definitely not the best. Now that's not to say some of the characters are bad, but some of them I feel like whoever was like the director or voice director, they should have done like second or third takes for it, because some of the stuff that you hear when you're playing in English, and I know when people say that, oh, he's playing in English, what do you expect and all of that, don't get me wrong, you know, there are good dubs out there, but I know in this day and age, you know, English kind of gets shit on half the time, especially in these types of games. However, as I was saying before, yeah, certain parts were not done well at all, especially for the main character. Now his voice acting was, I don't know, his voice felt a bit too deep for the protagonist, and that's all weird coming from me because my voice is hella deep, right? And if there was one part in the game, this is like the prologue as well, where he's falling down, when I heard the scream, I kid you not, I just died inside laughing. And I was just like, bro, there's no way they just like said, you know what, that is good. Now I haven't played it in the other languages that are available. I'm assuming those will probably be better than English, which let's be honest, it's probably like a given for the most part. Don't get me wrong, sometimes they're not as good, you know, but I'll say like 8 out of 10 times they tend to be better than English. But yeah, voice acting could use some work. You know, obviously I don't expect them to have, you know, some AAA stars and everything for the game, but you know, sometimes if you want to dive into the market, especially if you're charging this price for it, maybe you might have to push a bit more, or maybe get like whoever's directing it and stuff, you know, maybe go through it again and get like a second opinion and stuff. Gameplay wise, Lost Soul Aside is your, I guess, somewhat typical hack and slash game, but it's a very fast, quite fluid for the most part, lots of potential to do combos, mix and match your weapons on the fly, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, especially with like the amount of moves you have as well. So in this game you do have a skill tree, or yeah, basically skill tree, where you upgrade it, and those can give you abilities to like extend your combos, do different variations of certain moves, certain dodges as well, increase your health, your attack, crit rate, crit damage, increase your trinket slot, which is like your accessories, increase arenas slots as well. So there is a fair amount to get in the game. You're not going to get everything on your first playthrough, and for the most part I think I got a decent amount of abilities on my first run, and that's me basically doing every challenge that I can find along the way when exploring the game, and some of the basically like finding the crystals and like these dimensions that give you like EXP as well. Now in terms of gameplay in itself, I was happy for the most part, although I do felt it felt slightly cheap to an extent. Now in terms of like the audio effects and stuff for the hits and everything, they definitely feel very cheap. They don't feel impactful, which I was hoping for, but it's not too bad. I've heard worse in other games I've played, but I was kind of expecting a bit more here, you know, especially with like the different weapons you can get, but you know, it happens. Now with these weapons as well, you do have elements tied to them as well. Some of them don't have elements. Usually the ones that you get at the start for them don't have elements. However, there are 3 elements in the game. You got fire, ice and lightning. Now I kind of wish there was more elements in the game. That would have been fun, especially considering you can have your 4 weapons, and I would like to mix and match with them. However, with these elements there are like some bonuses as well. So for example, say if you freeze an enemy to an extent, or yeah, basically freeze them, and then use an electric move on them, they'll take a considerable amount of damage. So there is a few combinations you can do. The game does teach you about it, so I think that is a good thing to know, because that can really help with certain enemies. And that comes to my next point. The enemies in the game, there's a fair amount of them, a decent variety, although later on you start to see more and more of them, but like different variations, some of them harder variations, some of them much beefier variations as well. I found for the most part I enjoyed the designs for most of them. Some of them can be a bit questionable, like how they operate. Some of them I felt they had a bit too much health to an extent, especially even when playing on normal, which is kind of crazy to say, because usually normal you just like steamroll through everything, right? But in this game that's not really going to be the case. Obviously if you're very good at action games, you will steamroll through pretty much anything on normal mode. So as I said, certain enemies do have like a big health pool, and I'm not too sure why. Now in this game you can also stun the enemies as well. They do have a stamina bar, when that depletes you have an option to do like a special move on them. That special move will be different depending on which weapon you have equipped. So there's like 4 variants of it. Well, technically 5, but the last one you get essentially like at the end of the game, which is like part of the story more or less. So I'd say 4 in total. 5 is just for like that one part of the story. Anyway, the stun meter is a nice addition. I think that's always nice in action games, so I will give them kudos for that one. So I do feel certain enemies, again, I don't know if it was just me, but good lord, some of them take a long time to deal with, and some of them felt like mini boss fights as well, which also comes to my next point. Boss fights, pretty interesting for the most part. Some of them good, some of them got good mechanics. Others, you know, they're just like, yeah, it's okay. for the most part, yeah, I actually enjoyed the majority of the boss fights in the game. Now you do have like obviously your main boss fights, you know, proper cutscenes and stuff, and then you got other ones that are like, I guess, side bosses in a sense. You know, they still have that large health pool, but you know, they're not really like proper bosses. Some of them are just like enemies that you might see for the first time, and then later on they're just like normal enemies again, you know. There are like variations for these ones as well, and I did find fighting them quite interesting. Some of them got some nice moves, but yeah, I would say, you know, in that department they done pretty well. Now in terms of accessories in the game, there are a fair amount to collect. These accessories, obviously they give you benefits from like increased health, increased crit rate, crit damage, increase your attack. What else? There's quite a few, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. However, there are a fair amount of gold ones that you get in these things called dispersed dimensions, basically like a little challenge that you would do. You find that there's 9 of them in the game. You will find them throughout the story. Some of them are good, some of them are definitely questionable, you know. It's a good thing that you're actually allowed to go back and do them later on, because say for example you miss out a challenge and you continue the story to get like better abilities, more weapons, just to make it a bit easier, you can just go back to the menu. Well, you have to find the girl first, and then she'll allow you to go and redo it as well. So that is a nice feature as well. But again, these challenges, I felt for the most part they were somewhat balanced for the greater good, I would say. Definitely gives you a challenge, although as I said earlier, there was one that I was on for like 3 hours and it was just not budget. And basically this one, I think a few other people have said it in my comment section as well, is that they have not seen anyone do it, like get all the bonus rewards for it. And I was close a few times, right? I got there, but the thing is that one of the enemies just kept staying in the middle where I couldn't really touch, because if I take damage, I would fail that bonus mission. So yeah, it's one of those ones where you just probably have to come back with better weapons, better abilities, and just make it 10 times easier. I was trying to do it like when I unlocked it, just to like somewhat prove a point and challenge myself, but it didn't happen. Now before I wrap up this segment, in terms of weapons, you do, yeah, as I said, you do have a fair amount. It does 48 in total, although I don't know if these extra weapons that you get from playing on hard and nightmare are just like better variants of the weapons that you get originally. I assume that is the case. I do not know yet. I'll probably go back to it at some point. Now with these weapons you can also equip some, I guess, bonus effects on them. You can equip up to 6 of them. These range from increasing your break effect, your critical damage, your crit rate, health, attack, you know, all the usual stuff. So there's a fair amount to do. What's also nice is that with these enhancements, you can actually display them on your weapon. So if you want your weapon to look somewhat fancy and it will show in the cutscenes, you can just mix and match, place it where you want it on the weapon and save it. Now obviously if you don't want that, you can always just hide it and still save it and still reap the benefits of equipping those. But overall, yeah, I would say combat is very good, very fun, very flashy, although I still feel that there can be some work that can be done to it as well. But you know, considering it was their first game and everything, you know, there's always room for improvement. Difficulty wise, Lost Soul Aside provides quite a challenge to an extent. Now early on it's not too bad, although to be fair, you don't really have your perfect dodge, your perfect parry. So even if you dodge, the enemies are still attacking and they can just still catch you out. So there have been a few times like in the prologue where I've almost died and I'm like, bro, this could not be happening. This really could not be happening. But as you go through the game, you can see it's balanced to a good extent. Now I did dabble into a bit of hard mode after I finished the game, and you know, it still seemed the same, considering that you keep all your weapons and everything and your abilities. I get, for the most part, you're just going to steamroll through like the typical mobs. Now when it comes to some of the bosses, yeah, you might have to be a bit careful of them, because some of them actually do a decent amount of damage. Now if you continuously die in this game, the game gives you accessories which essentially enhances your ability to survive more and deal more damage. So there's like 3 tiers to this, and throughout my playthrough, I didn't use them. I did die a few times to some bosses, mainly because I just wanted to get a good run on them to showcase. But you know, I said nah, I don't want to use that. I felt that's cheating in my book, for me at least. Anyway, now other people, they probably wouldn't care. They'll see it, they'll equip it and call it a day, you know. And you know what? The fair play to them, right? You know, it's there to be used. But overall, difficulty's been good. Definitely puts you through your paces, and especially if you like trying to go for flashy combos and no damage and everything. No damage is possible, but good lord, some of the bosses, good luck on that one. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, difficulty wise, I'm happy about it. Now in terms of music, I actually felt, you know, the soundtrack for Lost Soul Aside was actually good for the most part, right? Obviously, when attacking and fighting and everything, sometimes you don't get to appreciate the music as much. But, you know, after a while, I did go back. I went to go and listen, you know, while I'm just like dodging all the enemies. I made sure to turn down the sound effects and everything just to have a feel for the music. And for the most part, yeah, I actually enjoyed it. However, I do feel some of the tracks were, I'm not too sure why they were there, but yeah, it's you know, it's one of those games where you probably just have a few good ones and a few ones that you just like, yeah, I'm not too interested in it. But yeah, overall I'll say, you know, music department, they've done pretty well. Now, with all that said and done, should you buy Lost Soul Aside? The answer is yes, but not at full price, because honestly speaking, this game is not worth the price it is at the moment. Now obviously if you can get it for cheaper and stuff, no, that's good. If you're a baller, you know, you have all the money in the world or whatever, then whatever, you can just do whatever. But you know, if you're on the fence about it, especially we're coming up to the period where there's a bunch of games coming out, I honestly say wait for a sale and then you're good to go, you know. Now overall, my experience with Lost Soul Aside, I felt it was decent for the most part. There are definitely parts that I dragged, and I mean dragged on, you know. Obviously all the areas that you get to visit and stuff is nice, but considering there's like no fast travel or anything, and then if you go past say like one point, you literally cannot travel back in that same direction. So say for example there's a crack in the wall, you go through it, you miss it, you're like, oh no, I missed a chest or something, right? You can't go back, which I think is a big oversight, you know, especially if like it's just right there. So yeah, there is still a bit of work to be done for this game. The mixing in this game in terms of audio seems to be all over the place. Sometimes it's done well, sometimes the voice characters are high, sometimes they're low. Hopefully they can fix that again. You know, sometimes the cutscenes as well, they seem a bit like blurry, like the frame rate's not all there. Supposedly from what I've read, they done pre-rendered at like 4K 30, which I'm not too sure why. I mean, like 60 FPS there, but you know, companies will just do that. But yeah, overall, I say this game, it definitely holds up well to an extent, but there's definitely a lot of improvement to be done. And for the price that they're asking, honestly, I'll say wait for a sale. It's probably a game that you don't really need to play at the moment, especially if you're like not a proper person that plays action games and everything, but you might be interested in it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review or impressions, whatever you want to call it. I am still probably feeling the after effects of my session past 2 days, but I did say I'll get this review done today and just basically share my opinions and see what you guys think about. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the game, if you've been playing it or if what you've been watching maybe. And yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.